My notes show you another way to join tables together, so I want to talk about that briefly, but tell you that you shouldn't need it because notice here I'm joining student ID to student ID. It's the same name. It uses an on clause instead of a using clause. Adds a little complexity to this. So I want to talk about it briefly because some of you are going to see it in my notes and you're going to try to use it, but my advice is go a little bit deeper and you'll find the using clause, and that makes life a lot easier. That's the one I recommend you use for your multi-table queries. So let's repeat this query here where we had plant name, foreman. Okay, so I want to select the plant name, the foreman, the last name, and the first name from, and let's do that now, from TBL employees. Or let's start with plants because these first fields are from plants. It doesn't matter. I happen to group them. I have plant fields and then customer field or employee fields. I don't have to do that. It would look kind of stupid, but I could do the plant name, last name, foreman's name, and then first name. That would probably confuse the heck out of people if I did that. There's no reason that they have to be in that order. You don't have to group them in your field list. You do the homework assignment and you just put them in the order that I tell you to on the homework assignment. Doesn't matter where they come from. From TBL plants, joined to TBL employees, on. Now in the on clause, all we do is, once again, tell MySQL how to link them together, what the two fields are. So we're basically saying where the employee IDs are the same, and this isn't going to work, is it? That isn't going to work. And the reason it isn't going to work is because I can't type. There's something wrong with my D key. Wow. Whoa. Funky. That's going to be a slight problem if I can't press D. What is that all about? Let's pause here. See if I don't know what's going on with the D. Let's see if somebody said, can you type it somewhere else? No. Good question. Nope. So something went goofy with my little D key, so I'm guessing I'm going. Stop laughing. It's not funny. I'm guessing I'm going to have to do a cold boot to bring that back to life. I hope that's what it is, but at least I'm going to have to make sure. Maybe I'll just type everything all uppercase. I'm going to be yelling at you for the rest of the day here. Of course, now my caps lock key doesn't work either. There it goes. Nope, caps lock doesn't work. I have to hold the shift key down with it. Oh, man. Okay. So anyways, that won't work. It can't, because which employee ID are you talking about, which where, right? What you have to do when you're using the on clause is qualify these. Now, if they had different names, I wouldn't have to qualify them. What I mean by qualifying is I have to designate which table these are in. This is the TBL plant dot employee ID. Now, don't follow. And this is the employee, TBL employees. Is it plant or plants? Plants. TBL employees dot employee ID. Now it's legal. That joins the tables together. So wherever there is a matching employee ID. Now I ask you not to follow because this is kind of annoying to have to type that whole table name in front. So what many people do, and you learned about aliases in single table queries, right? Where you can rename a field with an as. You can also rename tables. You can create an alias for this table. The word as is optional when it comes to tables. I don't usually put it in there. Put a P here, and your alias is E. That's what I do. Just simple letters. Sometimes it takes a couple. You can name them whatever you want. And then here, all I have to say is where the P employee ID equals the E employee ID. And then I'm going to add an order by order by last name, comma first name, just in case. Because I talked about it earlier, but we never saw it. I'm going to run this query. And I get a mistake, emp ID. Oh, plant ID, right? That's what they have in common. Not emp ID. These two tables have plant names. Wait a minute. Oh, that's not the query I want. Well, let's run it and then we'll back up. Plant ID sorted. Go. Okay, so there's all the names. Basically the same list we had before. There's all my employees. What I really wanted, let's do another example. Everybody got that one? I'll pause for a second here. So the only thing that's different is how I'm joining the tables. Instead of a using, I use an on. And because I'm using on, I have to qualify my IDs. Because I have to qualify them, I created aliases to make it easier to qualify them. We got that one working? Yeah?
I'm confused how this is working.
You're confused of how it's working?
Yeah.
Were you confused before with this one?
Slightly, but now I'm not really.
Okay, now actually this should clarify it, I would think. Because what this is saying is join the two tables together. How do I join them together? By linking the plant ID to the employee plant ID. All right, let me draw it on the board here. The recording will keep going. You won't be able to see it, obviously, in the employee or in the screen. But down here, what's the key? It's plant ID, right? Right. But remember when we looked at the list of employee fields? There's a plant ID there. Why? To link the two tables together. This plant ID for me was plant ID number 1. That's what's in this table. Where does he work? Number 1. Which one's number 1? I come down here, I find the 1, and I see all the other information. The plant name, and the foreman's name, and the number, and all that other stuff. Okay. So every one of these, and this has an emp ID, right? What about over there? Emp ID. Because they share this field, we can link them together. So what our current query is saying is, give me a list of all the employees and their plant names. Link the tables together wherever the plant IDs match. So when you're looking at Volker Gall's record here, it's a 1. I link it to the 1 down here. If it's plant number 4, I link it to plant number 4 down here, and I grab those fields and stick them together. Same thing happens here. Give me a list of all the trips by employee. When we're looking at Chris's trips, we get the employee ID number 11111, whatever it is. Over here, give me a list of all the trips that are 11111 and link them together. So it's tying them together. Instead of, remember the first query we showed where we just got the numbers, which was really hard to read. There's the plant IDs. Well, where does Davis work? That's 3. Instead of trying to figure that out, instead of trying to memorize the plant ID numbers, we can link the tables together and say, link this to plant number 3 and give me the name of it. Link it to plant, go find plant number 3 is really what's happening behind the scenes here. Wherever there's a 3, it gets the data for plant number 3. Wherever there's a 4, it gets the data for plant number 4. And if we look at that one more time here, notice how plant number 4 repeats itself? But for Tammy and Andrea, they both work in the same plant. And so does Arnold. They work in the same plant. So they work in the same plant, so they have the same plant name here. And they have the same supervisor because we only have one supervisor per plant in this database. So what's happening behind the scenes is MySQL is linking those two together, but your job is to figure out how. And it's relatively easy. Relatively easy, because the ERD will show you what they have in common. And you just say on or using those fields. Does that help? Okay. Now I want to do trips. And let's use the on clause again just to get a little more experience. I want to select the last name and the first name from the employee and when they went. Oh, there's my D again. And where they went. Just to show you that we can link these backwards, I'm going to say from TBL trips, join, and by the way, we forgot the alias. I know I'm using an on, so I'm going to put an alias in here. In the past, before I knew about using, I put an alias on every one of those tables. In my notes, there were errors. I think I've got them all corrected, where I was using, and then I had aliases. You don't need them. So here I'm going to be using those aliases again. So that's TBL trips, call it T. TBL employees, call it E. On. The T employee ID matches the E employee ID. Order by last name. Sure hope that D key comes back when I reboot. It's going to be really annoying using this laptop for the rest of my life. Run it. And there's our list of all the trips. I know there's 300 trips in the database, and it's kind of hard for you to see, but down there it says I collected 300 rows. And so now what I've done is instead of showing who by number took this trip, I'm showing their name. But what I would like you to do is scroll down to the G's. Ain't none. Where am I? I'm an employee because we entered it, right? But I've never taken a trip. And we made my ID number 65, 65, 65, 6 or something like that. And if we look in the trips table, there is no trip for that number anywhere. When you join tables using an inner join, you only get the records where they match. What if I had a trip for employee number 77777 and there is no such employee? Pretend. You wouldn't see the trip. If I have an employee with no trip, that's not a real problem. That's a parent, one, without any children, many. Okay? That happens, right? But when do you have children without parents? They're called orphans. That's what we call them. Orphans are bad data. They're bad data because how can I have a trip for an employee who doesn't exist? Well, usually it's because they don't exist anymore. We fired them, so we deleted them out of the database. Really? Why would you delete them out of the database? Most people just keep them forever. They archive them or do something to say they're still, we keep their records so that if we want to know how much did we spend on expenses for trips in 2012, we can go back and look. And if I delete Tim from the database because he doesn't work for us anymore, I got to delete his trips too. And now my data's bad because we spent more on trips that year than our database shows because we took Tim's out of it. So normally deleting data is just kind of dicey. Archive it. Very common field in a database table for employees, for students, for whatever. Current or archived. Are they current? Check. Are they archived? Used a lot. So I'm not there. They only match. Orphans are bad. Parents without children, that's not so bad. A whole room of parents would go out. Not parents, but adults without children. So that's not uncommon. I just got hired. Or I'm a person who's phobic and I don't want to take trips. Hired me anyways. There will not ever be any records in the trip table for me, so when we ask for the trips, my name is never going to show up. Unless we ask for it. There's a special way to do that, and I think that's going to be next week. Okay, I've been babbling here. What's going on? So, once again, that's the on. That's probably the last time I'm going to use it. I like using because I don't have to qualify this stuff. I only have to type it once, put it in parentheses, done. One more thing just for your interest, because I can see you're very engrossed. What if I wanted to display the employee's ID for some reason? Once again, I have the problem. Which employee ID? The trip employee ID or the employee ID? If I try to run this, I'll get an error. And the error says that column employee ID in field list is ambiguous. I can't read it. I've just seen it so many times I've memorized it. It's kind of small on my laptop. That's what it says, right? Jeff, you can see it. Ambiguous means I can't tell which one are you talking about. So every time I use a field that is the same in both tables, I have to qualify it. So I'll give me the employee ID. Does it really matter? In this, let's run it. In this row, is this the employee ID that we're linking or is it the trip ID? It doesn't matter. In this row, that number is going to be the same whether I ask for trip ID or employee ID. Doesn't matter. But the darn SQL does matter. It wants to be unambiguous. Got to put a T or an E on it. If we use using, the people at MySQL have figured out it doesn't matter. And you don't have to put a qualifier on it anymore. So let's do that one more time. Actually, let's go up here. You can just watch. This is just for your information. Here I did the using plant ID, right? What if I wanted to display the plant ID? There's a plant ID in the employees table. There's a plant ID in the plants table. Which one am I talking about? Once we join the records together, it doesn't matter. They match. That's the point. And it figures it out here and says, okay, you can have your list. Richard Femmer is always, and Coloma, that's always going to be plant number 1. The reason it shows up is because the two records match. It's one here, it's one there. We put them together, matched. So who cares which one of those overlapping plant IDs we display? Using, when you use using, it doesn't matter. And it knows it. It's smart enough to know it. I'll give you whichever one because they match. Go ahead.
So if you were doing linking multiple using with the using way, would you just list it?
3 tables? Is that what you're asking me?
Yeah.
Any other questions? Nice segue. Okay, we've joined 2. Now, how do we join more? Because curious minds want to know. I want to select the foreman. Well, first, I'm just going to do a quick question here. I want to select, you don't have to follow this one, from TBL trips ordered by, where's my D again? Ordered by expenses descending. I just want to see a list of the expenses. Okay, a bunch of 900s there. All right, my boss, the president of the company, wants a list of these people who are spending more than $900 on a trip. And I want the foreman's name. Uh-oh. So what do I want to know? I want to know who's taking the trip, how much did they spend, and what's the foreman's name. Ew. That's 3 tables. Now we have to join them. So when there's 3 tables, we have to join them all. And yes, as Derek alluded to, you just do a double join, basically. So I want to have the foreman's name. And just in case I want to call them, there's a foreman phone, I believe. And then I want the last name and the first name. and the destination and the expenses. That ought to be enough. Notice I've now got fields from 3 different tables in there. When you join 3 tables together, it's as if, I think I didn't draw that box, but I could use another color and draw a box around all 3 of them. Now it's as if all 3 of them were one big, huge monster table. From, now where do I start? This is again where this entity relationship diagram comes in handy. My advice to you when you have a chain of tables like this is start at one end, doesn't matter which, and just work your way through the chain. Just follow the connections. If you have very, very complicated databases, sometimes there's 2 or 3 ways to do that, and sometimes it makes a difference how you connect them, where ours are not that complicated. So I'm going to start with plants for no particular reason. I could have started with trips. It's legal to start in the middle. It just gets confusing, I think. I like to follow the chain. So from TBL plants, join to employees, TBL employees, using the plant ID, because that's how those 2 are joined, right? Those 2 are the ones I'm connecting. If you look at the ERD, what they share is a plant ID. And the ERDs that I'm going to give you for Henry Books and Premier Products are going to include that information. What do they have in common? So that you know how to join them. That's the first join. Then I want to do another join. Notice how I start the lines, makes it easy to read. You can see if there's a problem. I then want to join the next one to TBL trips. So now I'm joining employees to trips using employee ID. Yep.
Are you just joining on that second join? Are you just joining employees to trips, or are you joining the new one that you made with plants and employees, joining that to trips?
Does it matter? It's a very good question. The answer is it doesn't matter, but yes, technically what happens, this is very important, is it joins these 2 together. So the first thing we joined was plants to employees. We joined those together, and then what happened is it joined this one to those. Okay? The sequence sometimes makes a difference. For the purposes of this class, for your basic understanding of how databases and SQL works, don't worry about that. You are getting the picture that we need to link these together using a join. And in our case, it's never going to make a difference. The queries where it made a difference, I removed them from your homework assignment, you're welcome. But it does. I mean, Zach's right. It joins these 2 together, and then what do we get? A big table, right? And then we just add this one to it by linking it, because this new combined table does have an employee ID in it that I can link to this table. And sometimes that makes a difference, but it shouldn't for you in your homework assignments. And we said we only want a list of people, so that's a where clause, where the expenses are greater than, let's say, equal to 900, and we can order by expenses descending. So now what I should get, if this all works well, is foreman's names, employees' names, trip information, and notice my where clause uses expenses, my order by uses expenses. I could have ordered by plant, I could have done anything I wanted to, because it's now one big blue table on the board there. So all the fields are together. Wrong destination. Did I mistype it? Must have. Destination. Didn't do that well either. Destin, oh boy. There we go. So now I can see that Martine has been to Atlanta at $900. Is that terrible? Well, what we could, do we really care about how much I spent? You know what I really want to know is how much did they spend per day? Oh, can I do calculations with joint? Yeah, whatever you want. So let's go change that. I don't want the expenses. I want the expenses divided by the duration. And I can alias that cost per day. Oh, come on. Now here's a review. Cost per day. Can I where that? Can I use it in a where clause? No. Cannot use a calculated field in a where clause, so I have to once again say expenses divided by duration. But I can use it in an order by clause, so here I can say cost per day. And now notice right now it's Martine who's at the top. And you know what? Maybe I also want the duration here so I can see how many days they went. And now this expenses cost per day is greater than 900. That would be pretty nasty. I hope are there any? Oh, what is the matter with you people? Especially in Cleveland, right? You're going to Cleveland, Ohio, and you're spending $928 a day. Watch out for those street sharks, right? But again, now I'm using calculated fields, and if there was a need for it, we don't have much in the way of we could take the salary times their expenses per day and figure something out. Because maybe if you're a high salaried person, then your expenses per day should go up, but we'd have to figure out some convoluted formula to say, this is bad. Low salary, high expenses. But we can do that. Even though salaries in one table, expenses and duration are in the other table, we can do whatever we want here. Any way you want to. My advice when you're joining lots of tables together is that you look at the entity relationship diagram and just follow the chain. Doesn't matter which order. I could start at trips and work my way backwards. Link trips to join to employees, join to plants. Fine. I could move these around. What if I put trips, which is at the end? What if I put that in the middle? Oh my gosh. Would it matter? I think it would, because of what Zach said. So I'm going to cut that from there and try putting it in the middle. Now remember what Zach said. Zach implied is that this is joining plants to trips. Uh-oh. Using the employee ID. Plants doesn't have an employee ID. These two? Yeah, that. The table in between. Okay, it's a question for the recording because they're really good questions. Do they have anything in common at all? Answer is no, field-wise. But they have a table in between. And this is why I recommended it. Let's see if that works. I'm pretty sure it's not going to work. Nope, red box. And what does it say for the error there? Probably indecipherable. Unknown column ID in the from clause. That would be this guy. There's no plants employee ID. Okay, so no, I can't do that. Which is why I've been explaining to my students forever, use the entity relationship diagram, follow the chain, because if you follow the chain, you link them together the right way. Very good. Got to do another little test here. Hang on a second. let's say I want to, we had some issues. We had a phone call. Taxi driver said, I had an employee of your company in my taxi cab and they were really rude and they didn't tip me and they made a mess in the back of my tab. I'm just making stuff up. I want to be reimbursed. Well, first thing I'm going to want to know is who went on a trip on the 15th? And I want to talk to their supervisor. So let's see if we can select that. I want to select the supervisor's name. So that's the foreman name. And we better get their phone number so we can call them. From, put on the next line, from TBL plants, right? Because that's where the foremen are. But I want only people who went on a trip on February 15th. But we just saw I can't link plants to trips, can I? Not directly. Let's display the trip date, just so you can get a better handle on this. Trip date. This is not legal. Because now I'm going to say using what? And this is back to Zach's question 5 minutes ago. What do they have in common? Nothing. The two tables don't have anything in common, but they do. They have another table in between. That's often called a linking table. Okay. And so if I want information from two tables that are not directly related, I have to still make a chain. Even though I don't need anything in my results from employees, it is part of the chain that gets me from plants to trips. As long as I complete the chain, I can pull stuff from two indirectly related tables. So I need to, that's not legal, so I need to link plants to employees again using the employee ID. Link that to the trips table using the, whoops, this one's plant ID, my bad. I'm just capitalizing these to get my D's, don't let that bother you. Where the trip date equals 2012, yeah, 02/15. Now that'll give me a couple of people, and maybe that might get me a couple of supervisors. I don't know. I could also put a destination in here and say where the destination is in Chicago, because that's where the cab company's calling me from. I could put that in here, no problem. But let's just start with that, see what we get. Nothing. What? I was looking at it. Let's try 5. Was it 2012 or 2010? 10. Whoa, there's lots of people went on that trip, on a trip. So I could again add the destination. I've got 1 supervisor, 2 supervisors, 3 supervisors. I would have to, all 4 of them are there. So now the destination might be important, but the bottom line here, the point of this exercise is I wanted information from trips and plants. They're not directly related. I can still do it, but I have to use the tables that are in between. And imagine my poor friends that are working at Skyward with their 100 tables and they want something from here to there. Got to find a chain, and you got to make that chain. And I've seen a couple of their queries. It's join, 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 join. That's what you got to do. But that database has got a lot of flexibility. It's got a lot of accuracy because redundant data is the scourge of databases. I mean, have you ever gotten more than one catalog from the same, let's just say Land's End? I don't think it's ever happened to me at Land's End. But whenever the mail comes, you ever get 2 Land's End catalogs, right? One Tyler Gooden, G-U-D-E-N, one Tyler Gooden, G-O-O-D-E-N. Same address, basically the same name, you get 2. Or what more likely happens is you get Tyler Gooden, then you get another one of Tyler Gooden with his previous address with a yellow sticker on it. Now you got two. They know your new address. Why can't they tell that your old address doesn't need the catalog anymore? It happens a lot less today than it used to. And a lot of it's because we're doing a better job of designing our databases. The reason they're all broken up like this into hundreds, thousands of tables is so that we don't have redundant data. It improves our accuracy. Remember a long time ago, maybe that wasn't this class, the other class. Ever heard of garbage in, garbage out, giggle? We put garbage data into our database. What are we going to get out when we ask for statistics? Garbage. So we want to make sure that the data in the database is as accurate as it can be so that when we do statistics like who went to Chicago on that day, did anybody go to Chicago? Let's find out. Nope, there's a couple. And Fred's going to take care of it for me. And if I really want to know who was the person that went on the trip, just add the names, right? Because I got all my tables here now. I can put in here whatever I want. Chipple and Thomas. One of them was rude to a cab driver. That's my example that I made up. So we've done the joins. I think somewhere a little later here it talks about how joining multiple tables together. Linking more than two, here we go. Again, the inner is optional. My advice, just leave it out. It just separates this inner join from an outer join. As a matter of fact, there's no outer. Outers come in two flavors, left and right. We'll talk about them next week. And you never put the word outer, it's just left or right. We'll explain why later. You can join two tables with a where, bad idea. And so when we come back next time, we'll talk about outer joins and what they're good for. Just to give you advanced warning to keep you motivated to come back for our last two sessions. And what outer joins allow me to do is bring Volcker back into the list of trips. Give me a list of all the employees, even if they've never been on a trip, include them in the list. And they show up with a trip date of none or null. Expenses, null. I can see that they've never been on a trip, but I can see that. Give me a list of all my customer orders, but give me all the customers, even if they've never ordered. And I can even ask that. Give me a list of the customers who have never ordered. And just get that list and call them and go, what's up? Do I delete you from my database or what? We can do those kinds of things. We'll do that, and that's pretty much the end, so maybe about another hour. Your single table queries are due today. If you're having a little issue, most of you have sensed that I don't start grading until Saturday because my new job keeps me from grading during the week. And so if you get it to me by Saturday, some of you are going, phew. It's fine. Saturday should be fine. So we'll just, if I have it in my inbox when I get to grading on Saturday, it can't be late because I don't remember when I got it, so it must have been there on time. The final assignment is on the website. I have modified it to simplify it. Most of it you can do. I think there's one, maybe almost all of it, because I think there's one outer join in the entire assignment. It's the last one for Premier Products. There's your hint. Write that down. It's an outer join. Maybe it's Henry Books. Nah, it doesn't matter. One of them's got an outer join, and it's the last question in that group. So the rest of them you should be able to start tackling. I'm not saying you have to. The multi-tables query assignment is due May 13th, 11:59 p.m. period, because that is the last day of class. That's the last day of the semester. Don't send it to me 2 minutes after 2 because then it counts the next time you take this class. And you don't want to take systems again. No, don't send them to me late because I got to get my grading done by Friday. And stuff coming in late makes a difference. If you want to do updates, right, you can do updates to your single table queries. I got to have those by the same time. If you want a shot at an update on your multi-table queries, don't send it to me on Wednesday. What I told the other classes, if you can get it to me by Sunday before, I think that's the 10th or something like that. If you can get it to me by Sunday, early Sunday, I can try to get it graded Sunday so that you can do an update before Wednesday. You get it to me Monday or Tuesday, I'm not promising anything. Can't guarantee I'm going to have time to grade it in time for you to turn it around and fix it. Make sense? Okay, see you next time.